Hi everyone, welcome to our summary of last week. Hopefully you enjoyed our work from last week. Just getting started, so hopefully you enjoyed the bit that we went through. It's kind of an odd mix of things from last week. I think it's important to have that little bit of reimbursement background that we go through in week one because there are so many uh, legal slash ethical issues that relate to reimbursement. So if you haven't had, I know we have some folks that come into this class that haven't had HSAM 1500 or any of the 2300, I think is the economics class. So because at this point they're not prerequisites. So if you have not had those classes and you don't have any background in healthcare specifically, then it's important that we go through a little bit of background in reimbursement because sadly a lot of the ethical issues that administrators face now are related to the fact that people can't access and pay for healthcare. So it's important for us to have a little bit of background in that. So good discussion, interesting discussion. I was trying to push us toward, we may think one thing personally, and we may have a personal thought or a view on, if they don't have the insurance or they don't have the money or whatever, then they should just have to, you know, they should just not get the care. But a lot of times, as an administrator, uh, we have to look at it from the organization standpoint. We may think completely on the opposite side of that, and there's lots of students that we have maybe in one camp. Well, if they can't afford it, then they don't get the care, and then we have students that are maybe in the other camp. Well, we should provide care to all. And then there's lots, and actually I would say the majority, that are very conflicted by that. But I think I noted this in the discussion boards that healthcare is still a business in this country. And until it's not, until something changes in that regard, we do need to find a way to provide the most care to the most people, but still be able to keep our hospitals' doors open, our physician practices' doors open, because ultimately that's going to impact you, the folks that are currently in school or in school to go out to work in the healthcare field, or that are currently working. And I think a lot of you are obviously working in the healthcare field, and you need to get paychecks. So if the organization is simply giving away all of its care, there isn't going to be money to that bottom line to be able to pay staff, to keep the lights on, to keep the doors open. So there needs to be a balance, and that's where a lot of the ethical questions will come in as we move down the line. So good work in the discussion. Looking forward to reading your assignment this week. That itself was a similar discussion about, should folks, illegal immigrants coming into the country, who should be responsible for their care if they don't have the funds to pay for care. So always interesting things to think about and to discuss. But I would encourage you, and I will continue to encourage you throughout this class, to try and think if you have one single viewpoint that maybe is your personal viewpoint, this is how you feel very strongly about something, kind of sit back and think like devil's advocate. Is there another viewpoint that I'm not considering? And that's where the discussion board will come into play. But also, if it's maybe a written assignment, try and just sit back and think, well, is there another viewpoint I'm not considering? Something else that maybe I'm missing here. And it may help to broaden your thoughts, broaden your views, think a little more critically about some of these topics, because they may seem very cut and dry, but most of them really aren't. Most of them can be really, really complex. So the quiz, I want to talk a little bit about the quiz. So people generally did really, really well on the quiz, so not a lot of worries there. There was one question that was a little bit wanky, and so I did give people, if you got the right answer in the mix of answers that you gave, I gave you credit for it. So the question itself was defensive medicine involves, and it was meant to be a multiple choice question. And you're supposed to choose one, but somehow I managed to set it up as a multiple answer question. So when it was set up, it was set so that you could pick multiple answers. So some people did pick multiple. Sometimes some people only picked one, and you got the right one, and you were good. Or you only picked one, you picked the wrong one, so you weren't good. But some people picked the right one and multiple wrong ones, and if that was the case, obviously the system marked you wrong. But I've given you credit for that, so you'll see it as a like a red X or whatever. But the you will have gotten credit for it. If you look at your quiz, you'll see a 1 in there. So you did get credit for that. But so what defensive medicine is, and this is really important in the industry right now, it's generally, when you think about how expensive healthcare is, how high the cost is, a lot of that in this country comes from the litigious nature of our society. So the fact that it, we're going to immediately, and I say we as a population, are going to immediately sue somebody if we spill coffee on our lap, or if I slip and fall in the parking lot somewhere, or if I think that my doctor may have injured me in some way. All you need to do is watch. Yesterday we watched a lot of basketball on television, and watched actually over the last couple of days. We watched a lot of basketball on television. Got my Syracuse hat on, proud, proud Syracuse parent, and can't absolutely shocked that they got into the tournament. But so you know, it's as watching the television over a long period of time like that, which is not something I normally do, seeing the commercials for all of the, here in New York, we have Stanley Law, we have Alexander and Catalano, we have all of these different lawyers that are just, itching for somebody that's sitting in their living room thinking, boy, my back really hurts from that car accident I had a couple weeks ago. I think I can really sue that guy. Or boy, I think that I think that doctor may have injured me when I had that surgery. And it's not that those things aren't real, though some of those things really do happen, but there are a lot of lawyers that will look to embellish those cases. Now, defensive medicine comes into play there, where physicians and other healthcare professionals will work in a way to avoid liability. So let's say you go into the emergency department, for example. I go into the emergency department for a fairly minor injury, but it seems like it might be a case where the physician that's taking care of you is really not 100% sure what's going on. They think it might just be, a case of something simple, simple stomach issue, but it could potentially be something greater than that. So they run a CT scan, they do a ton of labs, and it ends up coming back that you just have a stomach virus. Now you just spent $1,000 plus for a stomach virus, but that physician was doing some defensive medicine to make sure that they didn't miss anything. Now in some cases, we typically don't care because it doesn't cost us much more personally, but it does cost the industry a lot. And in a lot of cases, it's bad. It's what creates. It doesn't create any higher level of care for us. We didn't get any different care. The physician knew what was wrong with us from the start, but they were doing this defensive medicine position to make sure that they didn't miss anything. It doesn't make them any better a physician to do that. Because they were doing a great job to begin with. They were just kind of covering their behind to make sure that they didn't miss anything. And it's something that needs to change in the industry. Next question. Episode of care reimbursement is a healthcare payment method where, and this was also a multiple choice question, but this one was set up properly. And the answer is the provider receives one lump sum for all the services they provide related to a condition or disease. So what episode of care reimbursement is, if you're familiar with the prospective payment systems at all. It's a great example. So a prospective payment system like for Medicare is on the inpatient side are the DRGs. So if you have a Medicare DRG system, you come to the hospital, you're a Medicare patient, you come to the hospital, you're admitted to the hospital, and let's say you're having a heart attack. You have a heart attack, you're admitted to the hospital, you could be there for 3 days. Let's say you have a STEMI, ST elevation MI. So you have your ST elevation MI, you're in the hospital for 3 days, your payment from Medicare is going to be X dollars. Next person has the same STEMI, same diagnoses on their chart. Still, it's a non-surgical case because it's a MI. So generally would be non-surgical case. So they are going to be in the hospital. Maybe this patient was not quite as stable, had to stay a couple extra days. So they're going to be there for maybe 5 days or 6 days. The hospital is going to get the same lump sum payment for the first patient and the second patient. That's what an episode of care reimbursement is. The fact that they were there sleeping in that bed those couple of extra days does not increase the hospital's payment through, in this case, the DRG system, or MSDRG is what it's called now. But it doesn't increase that system, that payment through that system. And that's why hospitals do their best to work as efficiently as possible and move patients out of the hospital. Now, it's not all about money. It's all about patients are horrible places to be. they're horrible, infection-filled. You don't want to recover in a hospital. It's not the place that you want to be. So, not that they're horrible places. They're wonderful places that provide wonderful care, etc. But if you're sick, that's not where you want to recover. You will not recover as effectively in a hospital as you will in your home environment. So they want to get you out of there as quickly as possible so you can get back to your home environment and recover there more safely because it's likely cleaner there, and more effectively because you'll be in your home environment with your family. It'll just be a better environment. So an episode of care reimbursement incentivizes the hospital to get folks out more quickly and hopefully have patients have a safer and healthier path to wellness. There are some other types of episode of care reimbursements, but I won't. They are detailed in your readings. I won't get into all of that. Okay, next one. Branch of government that was created so the people would be represented in government is, again, this is a multiple choice question, so that is the legislative branch. So the three big branches of government, judicial, executive, legislative branch. So legislative branch is obviously, those are our elected representatives. So they represent us. That's the purpose, obviously. We pick them. They represent us. They're in Washington or at the state level if we're talking about state government. Then the executive branch, that's obviously the president and his crew. But the executive branch, that is to manage the day-to-day operations of the government. So that is their task, to manage those day-to-day operations. The judicial branch is the other branch, and that's the purpose of the judicial branch is to settle disputes. So, they are supposed to be settling disputes, making interpretations of law, those types of things. So those are the three different branches, but in our case, our question was about who represents us, who is really who in that structure is us, and the legislative branch, that's us. I know there are times when we don't necessarily feel like that, and that's when we need to, make our voices known to our representatives, because that's the purpose. That's what they're there for. Last question. FMLA governs requirements related to minimum wage and overtime compensation. This was a true or false question. So the answer in this case is false. So FMLA is Family Medical Leave Act. So it is not related to wage and hour laws. It is actually related specifically to, well, it is somewhat related to it, but it's specifically about giving people time off. So it'll give people time off to take care of themselves or others in their family, so that they can, if there is a medical issue. So if there's a medical issue and for yourself and you need time off, maybe you don't have, oftentimes people will have a sick day or 2 sick days or whatever as part of their own work, but they may not have enough sick time if they were to have a significant catastrophic incident, etc. And before FMLA, you could lose your job in that case. So with FMLA, you can take, I believe it's up to 12 weeks. I don't have it in front of me. I think it's up to 12 weeks off. you don't get paid necessarily in that time frame. You may be eligible for disability payments or whatever, depending on what insurance you may have, but you get up to 12 weeks off, and your job is protected during that time frame. But you can also use this for our family members. So let's say you are you're married, your wife has a baby. You can take FMLA time to stay home for a couple of weeks or a month with your wife and your new baby. So it's not just for taking care of us if we have a medical issue. It's also for taking care of family members, etc. So there's lots of opportunity within FMLA that we didn't have before that law was passed. So important law with regard to care for ourselves and our family members in our work. So I think that's all I've got this week. Sorry it was a bit, but it's our first week, so we're just getting rolling. If you have any questions, let me know. This is obviously the first Ed Puzzle, it may be for some of you, so if you have any questions on the format, please let me know. I will take the Ed Puzzle grades and move them to Blackboard so you don't have to do anything once you've completed this. And I'm looking forward to working with everyone this week. Thanks so much.